freaking cold out here, guys. All right, guys, we're back with the next episode of Budgetmoto Adventures. We're talking about bikes this time. I know the first episode ended up being really long-winded, and it was just 40 minutes of me talking at a camera. So we're going to try and be a little bit more short-winded and do actual things instead of me just talking to the camera this time around. First bike we have here, this one's mine. I am Tony. The other rider is Enrique, and his bike is not here because he doesn't live here. So he's working on his bike at his garage and sending me video footage. Enrique and I have been friends for a very long time. We're childhood friends. We lived together all throughout college. We bought our first motorcycles together back in 2006 or 2007 and have been riding ever since. It's kind of our main hobbies, even though we don't live in the same place anymore. And we've taken a lot of adventures together, done a lot of dumb things together, and this is just the next dumb thing. So as for the bikes, this one's mine. It's a 1978 Kawasaki KZ200, and it cost me $200. We'll go ahead and put that up here on the board for mine. I bought it from a lady in California. It's a long story. I won't go into all of that, but this one's mine. It was $200. It obviously needs a few things. Like I said before, $200 does not buy a lot of motorcycle. This bought barely a motorcycle. So I have a lot more things to do than Enrique's bike. Enrique's bike is a 1982 Yamaha XT250, and somewhere along its life it had things added to it to make it a TT250, which I don't exactly know what that means. He does. I'm sure when we're riding together he'll be able to tell you more specifically about the bike. And he got his motorcycle from a family member for nothing. And at first I was a little hesitant about that because this is, a budget thing. And if you're getting stuff for free, especially the main part of it, it's like, is that really budget? But the more I think about it, the more I'm realizing that that's not uncommon. You guys know people, especially if you have family members that are into motorcycles, if you have friends that are into motorcycles, you're into motorcycles yourself, you can potentially come up with a motorcycle for free. So if you're looking for a bike, ask around. You may have a friend or a family member that's got something lying around that they just want out of their way. You maybe capitalize on that. And because Enrique was able to get his bike for no money, his budget is starting out still at $1,000. That's a purchase price of $0. And then it's just all downhill from here.
All right, dude, here it is. Budget adventure motorcycle. Came with a spare engine and a spare front wheel and no key. But check this out. There's my trip meter. Kicking it old school.
So next, let's go over a little walk around of my bike. All right, so this is my bike. We'll do a little close up here, and you can see she's not pretty. She's got a few things to deal with. One of the first things we got to tackle is this monstrosity of wiring going on here. Not sure exactly what's going on, but I got a pretty good idea of what needs to change to make it right. Oh, I didn't even notice that there. Some handy dandy information under the seat for you. This bike, like I said, came from California, and I actually bought another bike with it, which you will not see in this video series, but They both originally came from New York and then traveled to California as a husband and wife combo, and that's where they stayed, and that's where I ended up finding them. So there we go, just a little walk around. Let's see, I don't even remember what it's got on the odometer. 5,700 miles. 24 miles on the trip meter. I almost got a full tank. All right, so first things first, we got to make them run. It's kind of the most important part. All of this other stuff is secondary. If the bike doesn't run, none of this other stuff matters. So you need compression, you need spark, and you need fuel. I have not actually put a compression gauge on this bike yet. I have verified spark, and the next step that we're going to is fuel, only because just a real simple compression check, putting the thumb over the spark plug hole, feels like it's pretty good. I'm going to just go right into the carburetor, and then from there we need to move on to the electrical system. Without that functioning properly, we cannot electric start the bike. This does have a Kickstarter, which is a nice backup. I've also read that the electric start on these bikes is pretty problematic, so it may not work anyway, but we do need it to work for the spark. So let's change the cameras around and get a little bit of a close-up on the carburetor. All right, we're zoomed in here on the carburetor. This is on the right-hand side of the bike. We're gonna flip that thing out of the way. So we want to get this guy out. I don't know for a fact that the carburetor is plugged. I'm just assuming if you have a bike that's been sitting for longer than like 6 months, just assume that the carburetor is plugged up. I've already pulled the bowl off of this, and it was promising. There's not as much stuff in there as I was expecting, because normally when you see a bike that sat for this long, the fuel will have gone so bad in here that it turns everything green, and it's just like a toxic looking sludge. But this only has just a little bit of varnish kind of coating the walls of the bowl, so it's probably not too bad. I'm guessing that they drained the fuel before they parked it. Let's go ahead and tear this thing out of here, and then we'll get it over in the ultrasonic cleaner. Another thing to keep in mind is sometimes when your carburetor hasn't sat for however many decades this one has, sometimes you can just turn the carburetor sideways instead of removing it completely, and then just do kind of a external sort of half-ass cleaning. And a lot of the time it'll work good enough to get the bike to run, which is all you need. Ah, let go. Ah, gotcha, bitch. We got it. Dirt just fell out of it. Probably not a great sign. Let's move over to the table. All right, we're over at the bench now. We're ready to start taking the thing apart and get it ready to put in the ultrasonic cleaner. You don't have to have an ultrasonic cleaner. It's not necessary to get your carburetor clean. You can do this in your garage with carburetor cleaner, like a spray can of carburetor cleaner. The ultrasonic cleaners just work really well. I happen to have one, so I'm going to use it. We'll go ahead and get this thing torn apart, put it in the ultrasonic cleaner, and we will come back later when that's all done. All right, well, I wasn't expecting that, but it's kind of what you get for a $200 motorcycle. Where is it? The main jet and emulsion tube. Well, the problem is the emulsion tube, not the main jet, is jacked. It kind of looks to me like this is from a different bike and somebody tried to jam it in here, I think, or the emulsion tube is broken off down in there where the seat is for the needle. Either way, we got to fix this. We can clean it all we want. That's not going to work. So we got to go look for parts. But we can get the body of the carburetor into the ultrasonic cleaner. All right, here we are. Carburetor is in the ultrasonic cleaner, ready to go. I've got to go look up parts for this carburetor now, which I was kind of hoping not to have to do. So with that in mind, now is the perfect time to go check in on Enrique and his bike.
Okay, here's the carb freshly cleaned. Hopefully I've got it all cleaned up good enough, or very, very well inside. So let's toss it back in.
All right, well, that's a little bit disappointing with the carburetor on this bike, but not too big of a deal. We'll buy an aftermarket carburetor. It's not like this is a super high performance engine. It's just a little single cylinder 200. So we'll get something different on there. For now, we're going to move on to the electronics. Well, there's not a whole lot of electronics going on here. I should say the electrical. Let's get a battery in it and see if we can get the electric start to turn the engine over, and we'll kind of move on from there. All right, well, annoyingly, ran into another problem. The ground cable is supposed to have an eyelet like this on both ends, but it is broken off on this one, so we got to make a new negative battery cable. All right, we've got our battery in and the cable that I just made, the negative cable. Let's flip on the key. All right, we got a green light. We got a green neutral light. I wonder if well, I don't see anything going on with lights or anything, but they're probably all burned out. Yeah, that's definitely burned out. The horn doesn't appear to do anything. And neither does the electric start. So we got some more figuring to do. So I'm going to get a voltmeter and start chasing some wires, checking fuses, and see if I can figure out what's going on here. Probably something pretty simple like a popped fuse. We may have a chewed wire somewhere. A bike looks like something was living in here. Bike that sits around this long, it's not unheard of for something like that to happen. I'll see what I find and we'll be back in a few minutes. All right, well, what I've determined is that all of the switches are working to do the jobs of the things that they control. So my blinker switch is working. I'm not getting any lights because this bike doesn't have any blinkers on it, but the wires are all still there. That's functioning. The headlight and tail light are working. The bulbs are burned out, kind of expected. The horn, the switch is doing its job, but the horn also is blown out. I'm probably not even going to fix that. And then the starter motor, like I said a minute ago, the relay is not working. I'm going to try taking the relay apart and see if I can clean it and make it work, because any pennies we can save is going to help. I'm going to keep working off camera for a while. We'll come back when I've got the thing turning over with the button. All right, well, we got the electric start to spin. Unfortunately, like what I was reading, a common problem with these engines is the starter will slip because I guess they're chain driven. I don't exactly know. I haven't taken it apart yet to see what's going on inside. But when we get to doing some more service things to this bike, changing the oil and everything, so then I can take the cover off the side of the engine. Then we'll look in there. It's probably going to be, need a starter, need some other parts possibly. It's probably not in the budget. So luckily it has a Kickstarter backup. Let me just give you a little demonstration. So the key's on. You gotta be kidding me. I swear it wasn't doing that before. It would crank for a second and then it would start slipping. Yeah, like that. So that first time was the longest it's cranked by far. That was stupid, but kind of funny. So now I'm gonna get it down on the ground. We verified electrically everything works. I know we've got burned out bulbs. We've got an electric motor that doesn't work, an electric starter motor that doesn't work, but we know we have enough to get spark. And so this is a ignition system that uses points inside of here. As best I can tell, everything's working. I don't know about the timing, but I do get a good solid spark on my plug. So let's get it down on the ground and just force feed it some starting fluid to just eliminate the carburetor out of the situation. The carburetor's in here. None of the guts are in it. I'm just using it as a valve essentially. And we'll kick it over and see if we can get it to run on starting fluid. It's such a small bike, you can't even see it anymore. And it's up off the ground still on this lift. Let me rearrange the camera so you can see. Oh, this thing is so tiny. I'm gonna look ridiculous on here. All right, if this will run for 1 complete second, I'll be happy. That didn't sound good. Oh, did you guys hear that? Let's give it another shot. That popped like 4 or 5 times. Oh. I don't get that. Doing this by hand sucks. Oh, it did it again. I think that noise that it's making is the clutch for the starter. I remember reading a little bit about that. Oh, I remember reading a little bit about that when I was reading about the electric start not working on these. I'll have to do some more research. We may have to remove some parts. Let's kick it a couple more times. I think I can get it to wake all the way up. Yeah, I think it's that starter clutch. Wish I had another person here. If we can get it to pop one more time, we'll call this runnable and we'll proceed with the project ordering parts. All right, I'm calling it. Let me rearrange the camera again. We'll talk. All right, there we go, back in position. As you saw, we proved that we've got at least enough spark and ignition to get the thing to start. Unfortunately, without a working carburetor and just using starting fluid, all we're gonna get is a few pops. But that tells me that I've got some compression, an amount, I don't know how much. We've got spark, and the spark is mostly happening at the right time, so our timing should be good. Once we actually get it to run where we have to go drive on the road, then we may figure some other things out. And we've figured out that our electrical system is working. Earlier, there was some weird white wires hanging down here. Those were the substitution for the ground cable that was broken. I guess whoever worked on this last tried to use some old speaker cable to get the ground cable or the ground circuit connected back up. I just cut all of that stuff off. As best I can tell, the rest of the wiring is totally unmolested. Everything is good to go. So we'll cut over to Enrique for a little bit, watch him get his bike running, and I will order an aftermarket carburetor for this and do some research on the starter. I think probably what's going to happen is we're just going to yank the electric start out, and we'll see you in a minute. All right, well, that must be nice. His free bike runs with just a carb clean. I wish mine was going like that. I spent some time ordering some parts for this thing. I think for the sake of keeping the video short, I'm just gonna do this last bit here off camera. We already know that it will run, but I'll get it running all the way off camera. We'll check back in with this bike at the beginning of next video. And then the next episode that you see will be doing kind of the finishing touches on getting the bikes running. Some of the less important things like seat covers, we'll be dealing with tires, suspensions. I'm sure you can see this thing really needs fork seals. And then we'll be moving on with the project from there. And so anyway, I hope you guys have been enjoying these. If you find this entertaining even slightly, I would really appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, something along those lines. Go check out the website. And anyway, that's it for Budgetmoto Adventures this time. We'll see you in the next episode.